Hello Leeds, how are you all doing? It's a little bit less snowing, it's feeling a little bit more like spring, so everything feels a little bit more hopeful. This week on the Coronavirus Extraordinary episode of Light on Leeds, I have the Highrise Project, which is run by Victoria Kortekaas and Louise Atkinson. They're a very interesting couple of people. It's a fantastic project and I really think you'll enjoy listening about it. See what you think. On this episode of Light on Leeds, I have Victoria Kortekaas and Louise Atkinson, who have come along, well, not really come along, remotely come along, to talk to me about the Highrise Project. Hello, Victoria and Louise.
Hi.
Hi there, you all right?
Yeah, I'm doing okay, thank you. So can you please tell us, what is the Highrise Project?
So the Highrise Project is an art project that works with residents in Leeds. Originally, we started off working with residents of social housing, working towards looking at combating some of the stereotypes of living in social housing and giving people a chance to tell stories about living in social housing, but also looking at things that they loved about the area, but also wanted to improve in the area. And we've moved on slightly from that now. We're reaching out to other groups within Leeds.
And what made you decide to start the project in the first place?
So we both have experience of working in different communities in Leeds and further afield. So basically, we recognised that there was a big gap for people to get involved in things where they had a bit more control about that. So we were really interested in basically consulting with people that we were working with so that they could decide a little bit more rather than us just delivering the projects, that they had a bit more say in that and that there was some more legacy and sustainability to that. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we were interested in doing that in the way that we do.
And what have the outcomes been from sort of the first stage of the project where you were concentrating mainly on the social housing aspect?
So, well, I suppose our original project started in Lincoln Green, and it was part of a wider project that was run in conjunction with the International Sculpture Festival. And it was a part of the Fringe Festival associated with that. And we worked with residents in the Bermondsey and Lincoln Green area. What came out of that was a publication that was called the Highrise Project. But more interestingly, what happened from there is that people who worked within housing were able to see in a visual way what the residents thought about living in their area, and some of the issues that they had. And this kind of led us on to doing some work with more residents through Leeds City Council in the area, and also getting involved with other organisations to do projects, including a group in Parkway Towers who created a film about their community, which you can see on the website. It's also on our YouTube channel. Yeah, I don't know if Louise wants to add anything to that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed working with people in Lincoln Green and Parkway Towers. As Victoria said, it was really interesting to see how they responded to the different sort of activities that we gave, but also how they made them their own. So we felt like it actually did give a real clear indication of how people felt about their areas and made some good changes as well. As part of these projects, we also worked with local third sector organisations, Touchstone and also Zest and Space 2, which was really great because we were able to add some extra opportunities for people who were already working with those organisations and also bring new people in as well.
Yeah, so when you say that you gave them sort of projects to do, what kind of thing were you asking them to do?
So initially, the first project we did was a photography and art project. So what we did is we worked with the participants to teach them basic photography skills, and then we went around the area and did a photography walk where they kind of looked at certain things in their area. We then took the images back and we did a variety of different art workshops with those, including print and repeat pattern making. And then as a whole, they brought them together. They picked out the images that they wanted to use, and put them into a magazine publication or a zine publication. But we also during the workshops recorded the general conversation and dialogue that was going on, and out of that they pulled some quotes that they'd like to use in the magazine. So we do centre our work a lot around film and photography, but it's not only photography or film, it's also other, how we can put that into other creative workshops and mix it with other types of art. The second project we did in Parkway Towers was a film project using still photography and some film.
And do you find you get a wide range of people who get involved in your project, sort of wide range of ages, etc.?
It tends to be sort of, maybe like from about 30s onwards, but I think in the first project, in fact a lot of the projects, we've had people sort of 60s and 70s, so it's open to all ages basically. And from our previous work, so we actually met working in adult community education, myself and Victoria, and we know that there are a lot of people who they basically find their creative side a lot later in life, because they've either been told that they can't do that, or they felt like they haven't been able to do that for whatever reason. So we feel like our job in a way is to facilitate, it's not only to facilitate their stories, but also to help them understand that they are creative and that they can do things, and just seeing that people's confidence grow, and understanding, that they are teaching us some things as well. So the way that they might approach an activity, so we'll have an idea about how we would do that, but everybody would do that differently.
Yeah, of course. I think it's interesting that you said that about, sort of 30 and up, because I suppose as you get older, you don't have as much of an opportunity for sort of play, or, through art or any kind of craft or anything like that. Sometimes life can get in the way, can't it? So it's almost like you're providing this space for people to be creative.
Definitely. I think it is very difficult sometimes for people to be creative, and I think sometimes, particularly among people of my generation, for example, art can be quite a scary word, because of experiences that they might have had in the past. So yeah, and you don't, you've a lot of the time there's children and families that get in the way, or jobs or work, and sometimes it's many other things that can stop you from being creative. So it is good to have that space where someone can come along and focus on being creative without other distractions is useful for them, I think.
I think we also want to, with a lot of the techniques and the materials we use, we want to make sure that they're accessible as well. So we try and find sort of materials, techniques, apps, what have you, just that people can access in their own time, so they're not coming along. A lot of creative courses, it might be something that you can access it while you're doing the thing, and then afterwards, it either costs too much money or it's too complicated. So we try to make it so that people know where they can go to carry on those things, or we can signpost people to other opportunities as well.
Yeah, I think that's definitely important. And you mentioned some of what came out of your project has been interesting for sort of stakeholders in the building or the housing. Can you talk to me a little bit more about that? What sort of responses were you getting that they were finding interesting to hear?
I think it's about being able to hear the actual stories, because a lot of sort of consultations in local areas focus a lot on statistics, and obviously that is important. It's important to know kind of who lives there, and the issues that they're dealing with, and all of these kind of things. But having the actual story behind that, or the individual behind that, I think is really powerful, because people then they understand, oh yeah, it's not just X% of people experiencing this particular thing. This is this actual person who's telling us how they feel, and that they feel lonely, or that they're having a particular problem, and that kind of is more powerful.
Yeah, definitely. You're getting the human perspective, like you say, rather than just the cold statistics, which could seem divorced from the actual person. And where are you seeing the project going forward?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's been very difficult the last year because we've all been affected in as many kind of freelance people have by COVID-19. But we have been working on projects across the city. Some of them have had to be postponed, and some that are responding to limitations that have been put in place by COVID-19 shielding and guidance. So currently we have funding from Leeds Inspired to run 3 projects across Leeds, working with people in social housing. So we are running 2 in the Bermondsey and Lincoln Green area and 1 in New Wortley. So that's starting very soon in March. And we still have places available for people to book onto those if they're interested. And we're also running a project in Gamble Hill, which is specifically for residents of Gamble Hill, and that's looking at using film and photography to bring a community together to start to look at how people can start working together as a community. And we're also running a project with Language Hub, which is currently running and is in process, and that's another film and photography project.
Do you find that that's another legacy of your work, is that when you leave, you've sort of helped foster a little bit of community spirit, people getting together who even though they've lived near each other might not have known each other before that?
Definitely. So interestingly, so the Language Hub project that we're running at the moment, that's a project which works with people who are speakers of other languages to enable them to help practice their English. But basically we decided to involve more ESOL in the project, so more opportunities to practice English and to work with speakers of other languages, because we noticed that was quite a big demographic in a lot of, especially the high rises in Leeds. So we wanted to make it accessible and to also promote an element of cohesion. So basically that people could come together, because we noticed from when we did the work in Parkway Towers in Seacroft, there was like a willingness from the people who we were working with to work with people who might be from other cultures or other countries, but just not knowing how to approach that. So we thought that might be a way in to support people, so that it was open to everybody, but that there was this extra layer of support for people who felt like maybe they needed more opportunity to help to communicate with people.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, that's great.
One of the things that we are keen to do, and we always try to do, is when we work within a community, we link into organisations within that community, so that we're not coming in and doing a project and then just disappearing. So that when we go away, there's hopefully an established group that they can work with that organisation that we've linked up to. So, for example, in the Lincoln Green area, we've linked in with Touchstone, so that when we finish the project there, the people who have taken part can still either choose to carry on with the group that they've built or link into other projects within those organisations.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, so that you're not just sort of parachuting in, doing a great project and then leaving everybody to their own devices.
Absolutely. For us, it is really important. We are making sure that people, we're starting them off on something and then not just leaving them in the lurch. So obviously we hope to go back and work with people again, if and that for us, that's a great indication of something that we've done well, because there are people that we've worked on different projects with, and then sort of said, oh, by the way, we're running this in your area, or we're running this that might be relevant to you, and then they've come back. So it feels like, obviously they've enjoyed what they're doing, so that's really positive.
Yeah. Yeah, that's nice feedback for you, isn't
Definitely.
it? And has this whole time been really frustrating for you both then? Because I imagine that you've sort of started off a lot of projects, and then all the different backwards and forwards and with rules and things like that. Has that all been hard for you to manage, or has it given you a bit of space to think about where you're going with it all?
It's a little bit of a mixed blessing, I find. Maybe this is me personally speaking, because it was really, really very frustrating at the time the first lockdown set in. We just finished working on workshops in a project in Lincoln Green to create a mural for the Lindsay Garden area. And it's been a year in the making since then, because we've had to work against all sorts of restrictions to get that up and running. And then we also were on a bit of a roll in terms of we were reaching out to communities, we were reaching out to people, and we had some really good plans, and we started to sort of develop some ideas, and we had to put all of those on hold for quite a while while we thought the country might open up a bit more. And then just as we were starting to go, right, here we are, we can start to get these things going, and get back together in safe ways. Obviously we went back down into lockdown, so it is a bit frustrating, but what we're doing is it's given us the time to develop new ways of working with people. And although they might not be the most ideal ways, because ideally we'd be in a group in a room where dialogue can flow freely, it still means that we're able to reach out to people, particularly now, who are maybe feeling quite isolated. And it's there are there are good points and bad points about. Well, obviously, there's lots of bad points about what's happening now, but in terms of us,
Yeah.
we are able to reach out to people in different ways, which means we are reaching different people we might not have been able to before, but also people are feeling very worn down by this, and it's very difficult for people to get involved in things when they're not maybe feeling at their best. I don't know if Louise wants to add anything there, but
Yeah, definitely. I'll echo that sentiment. Basically, I think what we wanted to do was make sure that we did justice to the people who we were working with. We didn't just try to rush into something because we had projects to run, and try to figure out how we could deliver that. Obviously, some of the people that we work with, digital access is a massive problem. So we had to kind of overcome some of those barriers, before we could even start to think about how we're going to deliver the thing. But it's in terms of us thinking about how we might deliver things and how we keep in touch with people. It's been a steep learning curve, but I think it's also been quite a useful one. I think it's forced, well, definitely myself, to think about delivering things in different ways, even though it's been quite a challenge at times. I think it just goes to show when we work with, when we're working with people in the Language Hub project, that they turn up every week and they've done something, and we manage to keep in touch with them on WhatsApp. And, it's just seeing them and hearing them talk about what they're doing, and how it's been helpful for them to have a focus, that just sort of makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, I bet, because in a way it's like an added layer to your project, isn't it? Just the whole COVID and distance and people being isolated. It's. I mean, nobody could have foretold any of this, I don't think. But how great that your project. It's not just that it just has to stop because of everything. You're still helping people, and you're still getting people together and keeping them connected. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and with the digital access as well, it's great to see. Obviously, none of this happens in a vacuum, and as Victoria said, we do like to connect with what's already happening, sort of in that ecosystem as well, so that we're not duplicating things, or we're just sort of adding to what is already there, and we can leave people with a bit more of a foundation. But we've also been working with an organisation called Barker, and the Men's Health Unlocked project, who've been able to help us find tablets for people. So there's a lot of organisations that have sort of sprung up to plug that gap of digital access. and provide people with devices and data and allow people to get online, and not just for the stuff that we're doing, but just for everybody in general who just needs to get online to do everyday things nowadays.
Yeah, it's great that those organisations exist and they're doing the work that they're doing, because of all times, being connected now on the internet, etc., it seems the most important thing, doesn't it?
Mm.
And can I ask, how did you two become a team together? Have you worked with each other in the past and you came up with this idea together, or?
Well, like Louise said, we worked for an organisation that was teaching adults in the community art.
Yeah.
And I think we met at a staff meeting, and Louise and I have very, very similar backgrounds in terms of our upbringing and things like that. But also we have shared interests, and I think I can't exactly remember when we started working on this together on the Highrise Project, but I think it kind of cemented itself when we visited a photography project, a photography exhibition in Sheffield, which was I can't remember the name of the place. Louise is so much better at remembering names than I am. But
I think it was Park Hill, in Sheffield,
and it was what used to be social housing, and it had been turned into quite expensive flats. So all the people that used to live there had been moved out and they'd been changed into flats. And in the middle of the flats was a photography exhibition in an art gallery that wasn't there when the people lived there, of the people who used to live in the flats. And we kind of I think we had a conversation about how working class people or people in social housing have been represented by photography in the past, and how that can sometimes change with political ideals and maybe perhaps agendas that are around at the time. And that conversation started, well, how do, because I'm from a very working class background, and so is and Louise is, so it was, how do you represent people without bringing in your own agendas and your own kind of and things like that. And that's how we started. So that's, I suppose, where this idea developed from, because what we wanted to do is we wanted to go and work with people, and we wanted the ideas to come from them, because people know what they need, people know what they want, and people know who they are, and they can express that if we work with people rather than at people, if that makes sense, then they're a bit able to do that themselves. And I think that's basically what I'm right in thinking that's where this started, isn't it, Louise?
I think so. I think it was probably a culmination of a lot of things, because we both have worked on ideas around representation in art sort of separately before that. So I completed a PhD in 2016, and I was interested in the way that people were represented in art, particularly through museum collections. So that kind of ethnographic aspect was really of interest to me. And then talking to Victoria about her dissertation about representations of working class people, particularly unemployed people as well, how we could basically break some of those stereotypes as well, because I think I'll hand over to Victoria about her kind of research into social housing and the initial and original kind of premise of social housing. But those were really interesting conversations.
Yeah. So my interest lies solely, I think, in the fact that the way people are represented can change dependent on the times and dependent on the funding, etc. So and social housing, I think, particularly in current years, has become I live in social housing, by the way, just to make that clear. I think there are stereotypes associated with people that live in social housing, and I think originally the intention of social housing was for a place for people to have adequate housing, but it wasn't just supposed to be just a place. I think it was more designed to be like a village environment where people would live next door to different types of people, and we could all live and learn together. So yeah, I'm rambling a bit now. Sorry, I've lost my thread.
I was just thinking as well about I've always lived in social housing when I was younger, and now I live in a back-to-back in Beeston. And I remember this was quite a long time ago. I'm sure they must have changed it now, because there must have been other people who were horrified. But I went to Leeds City Museum ages ago when my son was little, and they had a room set up, and it was telling people about back-to-backs, and they were like, people used to live in these, and I was like, I currently live in one. So yeah, I see what you're saying about that.
Yeah, I mean, we did have discussions of some of the language that's used around social housing as well. It's very much about telling people what they cannot do, and it's very much like living in an institutional building at times. I live in a high rise, and obviously my house and everybody else's house is decorated to suit ours. But in that space in between, going from the door of the high rise to the lift is very much like walking through corridors in a hospital or a government building, because it is a government building. So it's and there are lots of messages and things around about what you shouldn't do, and it's very much worded worded as if you're going to do something that you shouldn't be doing. Like the assumption there is that you're not going to behave properly. It's kind of like, I suppose that's some of the issues around living in social housing that I've noticed.
It's like that dreaded sign that you see, isn't it? When I was younger and I lived in a council estate in County Durham, it'd be like little cul-de-sacs. So of course, all the children, we all gathered together and played games and things like that. And it's those awful signs that started going up, I think maybe in the 80s, that said no ball games allowed. And you just think, that's horrific, isn't it?
They're still there.
It's still going on.
Yeah. But you're right. Go on, Louise.
Yeah, we are interested in finding out what people think about where they live, finding out what they want to change in that area, but also finding out what they're proud of, and finding out who they are. And because the city is made up of people, it's not, it exists because of them.
And they have everybody who has their own skills, their own abilities, and we're very much interested in asset kind of based development, community development. But I think in social housing, you do have communities that will work together, and some really good positives about it. And one of my favourite stories about living in the flats that I live in, about communities working together, is when the World Cup was on. I don't know when that was. I'm not a football fan. But it was very warm, and England were doing quite well, I think. And this community that I live in, they wanted to be able to watch the football together, but they wanted to be able to keep an eye on the kids that were playing out, and playing football at the time. And I remember that one of the flats, one of the bottom flats, they moved a big sofa outside, and they put the television up at the window, so they could sit and watch the football while the kids were playing, which I thought was ingenious and brilliant, and solved lots of problems. So there is so many positives as well.
Yeah, and it's great to remind people of those, isn't it?
And I think also there could be more positives in the fact that people, they're very sort of clever in coming up with things with the resources that they have. So if they had more resources, and I think that's one of the things that we want to highlight as well. We want to enable people to think about what they might want and what would benefit them, and how we can sort of amplify those voices to people in ways that maybe somebody living in a flat on their own might feel like, oh, I can't get that done, or I don't know who to talk to about that. Maybe maybe we can bring that together in a way that makes that more visible.
Yeah, definitely. I think it sounds like a fantastic project. Have you both lived in Leeds all your life?
No. I was born in Tidworth, which is in Wiltshire or Hampshire. I can never remember which one it is. And then I moved to Germany, and I moved back to Leeds when I was maybe 7 or 8, I believe. And then I've lived in Leeds since then. But my parents are from Leeds, and they're from Seacroft and Crossgates areas of Leeds. So yeah.
How about you, Louise?
Yeah, as Victoria was saying earlier, we've kind of, it's quite spooky how similar our backgrounds are. So I was also born in Wiltshire, in Salisbury, and then I moved to Cyprus and then to Germany, and then back to Wiltshire, and then back up to Yorkshire. So I actually moved to Leeds in 2006, I think it was. So I went to university in Leeds, and while I was living in Wakefield, and then I moved to Leeds after that.
That is so odd that you sort of followed each other around. It's like it was meant to be.
It's weird, yeah.
So you're both definitely qualified to answer the questions that I ask every guest. The first one being, what do you think is great about the city of Leeds?
Well, there are so many things that I love Leeds. I genuinely do. It's one of my favourite places in the country. I've been to a few other places, and Leeds has always been the best for me. I guess it is just, I feel like there are lots of different communities in Leeds, and that's expressed in all the different areas in Leeds, and that is just, it's full of art, and it's a very friendly place to be. That's what I love about Leeds, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think you've taken my words as well.
Sorry.
Yeah, I would. No, it's absolutely fine. I think we can say it twice. Yeah, it's very friendly. I think it's a lot. It's definitely in terms of feeling like part of something. I think there's a lot of opportunity to connect with people. I feel like it's kind of big enough that there's enough things going on, but like you don't feel overwhelmed by everything, so you can easily kind of go out into town and see somebody that you know.
Yeah, I totally see what you mean, and I agree. And I've not lived here forever, and I was actually born in Germany, strangely enough. My dad was in the army, so I lived in County Durham for quite a long time, but I've lived here for about 16 years, and I totally agree with all of your sentiments.
We're all army brats.
I know, fancy that. There must be something about us, must there? If you had to choose something that you think is not so great, what would you go for?
One of the things about Leeds being, as I said, it's kind of maybe, I don't know in terms of population, but definitely feels kind of smaller, and I feel like in a way sometimes can be a bit too humble.
Yeah.
So there's amazing things happening. I feel like we're always kind of looking over at Manchester or looking over at Liverpool or other places and sort of going, oh well, we're not them, or we're not as good as them, or what are they doing, sort of thing, rather than just celebrating what's going on. And sometimes I feel like it can come out as almost a kind of, oh well, we can't do that, when we know we can.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the only thing. And I think I would say just, I feel like I wish we shouted a bit more about what we were doing.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with Louise, and it's little things for me. Like it would be, I live in an area where it would be nice to see more going on. So I think like some of the areas in Leeds, although they have their own communities, there's not enough investment in perhaps creating spaces that people can use. And there are some really good spaces around Leeds. For example, there's a space in New Wortley called Jaley Fields. I think that's a local name for it, which is a fantastic space. And I've spoken to residents there, and they feel like they want to be able to use it more, but they're not able to because there's not enough investment put in perhaps making it a space that is usable for the neighbourhood. So we do lots of fantastic things. I love the city. There's lots to do, but a lot of it is in the city, and maybe some of that should be further out into the mosque, the further out areas.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, because it's not always easily accessible for everybody to get into the city centre, or even you get people who don't particularly like crowds, or there's all sorts of reasons why you might want to do something just in your own community.
And it would be nice to see maybe some more kind of. We have lots of amazing art things going on in the Leeds City Centre, and sports events and cultural events and lots of things. And it would be great to see them maybe in areas like Bramley and Armley, and if there are those things there, it'd be great to hear more about them, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think it's New Wortley Community Centre are coming on in a couple of weeks to let me know what kind of things that they're up to. And to be honest, that's one of the reasons why I started the podcast, when you were talking about us not shouting enough about everything that's going on. And I mean, when I first started, I thought I might run out of people to talk about, but I'm coming up to 2 years and it never ends, because there's all sorts of amazing, great things happening all the time. And every time I speak to somebody, I get a whole lot of new contacts because they're telling me about other people who are doing great things. So, yeah, I hope I'm doing my little bit to help promote
You
Leeds
are.
and shout about us a bit more.
That's really interesting as well,
Fantastic.
because I work for New Wortley Community Centre.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So they do some amazing stuff. I'll let them tell you all about it. But yeah, obviously, because I work freelance, I have to sort of supplement my income with other
Yeah.
things. So one of the things that I do is work with New Wortley Community Centre, and they've been going strong throughout the pandemic, helping local people. They're the hub for the Armley area, and they've been providing food parcels and food help and prescription pickups and befriending and all sorts of amazing things. But so yeah, really worthy organisation, I think.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to speaking to them. And if somebody was a resident of Leeds for a long time, would you be able to tell them about something that you would consider to be a hidden gem that they might never have heard of?
We had a long discussion about this, didn't we, Louise? Because we're like, "Ooh, are there any hidden gems that I think if
it's hard to know, isn't
Yeah.
it? If you know something, sometimes you feel like, oh, everybody should know about that. But
It is, and I don't worry about it too much, because I mean it's the same with all of the three questions. I get lots of things repeated, but I think it's quite interesting to hear that, and I think it's quite interesting to hear what other people, because you, like you say, you might know about something and you think it's really well known, but there's always going to be somebody listening who won't have heard.
Well, mine is good. Mine's definitely going to be Post Hill, which is very near to where I live, which is one of the Leeds City Council parks, and it's a really nice walk, and it's been a lifesaver for me, particularly through the first lockdown, when I was able to go out and walk there for an hour every day, and be able to walk in a green space that's full of lots of nature and wildlife. And I'm not sure if I want everybody to know about it, because
That's the other side of it, yeah.
it's a sanctuary for me, but it is a lovely, lovely place, and I think some of the woodland in there is over 400 years old. I may be wrong about that.
Wow.
And it's called, but more interestingly, is I like the fact that it's called Post Hill, because they used to run trial bike races up there, Yorkshire Evening Posted, in the early 1900s, I think.
Oh, wow. And that's how the name stuck.
And it also used to be a prisoner of war camp during the Second World War. They used to have a prisoner of war camp up there. So
Gosh.
when you do go up there, there's a field that's halfway up that has it doesn't have a memorial, but it has a bench with a little kind of plaque memorial about the World War II. So yeah, it's got some interesting history, but it's also a really lovely place just to go for a wander.
Well, that's a good one. I've definitely never had that one before.
well, seeing as you're in Beeston as well, which I didn't know, but till just now, but I don't know if anybody's told you about Basement Art Project.
They have, and I'm a very good friend of Bruce's.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
That's good
but
to know.
please talk about it, because I'm sure he'll be glad of an extra mention.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to mention a few sort of artist-led spaces, because I think that what's great, another thing that's great about Leeds is the fact that a lot of people, they manage to just get on with stuff, regardless of whether they, have permission or, can they just have ideas about wanting to do something and just get on with it.
Yeah.
So I think Basement Arts Project is a good example of that. Just basically, a family wanting to set up an art space in their local area, in their basement, and inviting the community in. I think that is just, I mean, obviously at this moment in time it's not really possible to do more with that, but I've seen a lot of things online, but there are also more things popping up, so places like Airplay Studios on Kirkstall Road, and a new space called Threshold in Burley.
Oh right, I've not heard of that.
Well, I don't even think it's launched yet. So so I'm sure you'll be hearing more from them. But that is Julia McKinley who set that up, and basically it's in another back-to-back in Burley, in the front yard of the. I mean, I'm sort of saying this, but I don't actually. Obviously, I've never been because it's not launched yet. So but it's called Threshold, and that'd be very interesting to see. And I think again, these sort of inner city areas that may be outside of the kind of purview of the general city kind of buzz, are really, a lot of people are really taking it upon themselves to set things up, and I think that's what we want to champion. That's what we want to champion for everybody.
Yeah, that anyone can give it a go.
Absolutely.
And what will you both be doing with the rest of your day today?
I'm actually just going to stop and chill and probably watch something on Netflix if there's anything left to watch.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? They're not putting new things on quick enough.
But we've been kind of working today. We recently formed as a CIC, so we've been working on what that looks like and what that's going to look like for us in the future. So after this, I'm gonna wind down for the weekend. There's not many places to go and there's not much to do, but I can put my feet up.
Yeah.
And that's probably it, really. Spend time with my family, and yeah.
And what about you, Louise?
Well, as I said, I just moved house, so basically I will be just generally trying to get things sorted a little bit more.
Okay, yeah, but try and schedule yourself in some rest time as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And I always ask guests if they'd like to feature a song by a Leeds-based artist or musician. Can you tell me a bit about who you've picked and why?
So I've picked an artist called Dave McKinley. And I basically, when you said Leeds-based artist, I thought, well, who do we know whose music I enjoy and who's local and who is kind of grassroots. So Dave he plays acoustic music, and he's got quite a few albums out that you can find on Bandcamp. But this one, I believe, was created in lockdown. I've been informed. So it's kind of the first person that sprang to mind when we were asked about a song. So he's a local lad. He lives in Bramley. And the song that we've picked from his new album, One Trick Rodeo, is called Hope Floats, which I think, without being too cheesy, fits into the idea that good things carry on from good things. So yeah.
I think that's perfect for everything that you've talked about on the podcast. Thank you so very much. There will be links in the podcast notes to everything that you're doing so that people can click and have a look. I'll put links to the music as well so people can hopefully go and buy the tracks. And best of luck, and I hope to see you around in real life at some point in the future when we're all freer to roam again. And thanks again for coming, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah.
It was great to chat to Victoria and Louise from the Highrise Project. It's just such a fascinating project that they're doing. As usual, everything that you need to know and further details are in the podcast notes. I think you will really enjoy the featured song. It is Hope Floats, and it is by Dave McKinley. Enjoy yourselves, look after yourselves, stay safe, stay well, and I hope that I will speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
the sun. Turn my walk into a run. Face the sun. Turn my walk into a run. Hope has a ghost in a land of despair just off the coast. Shines a beam of light to guide the way so the rocks and the boats don't fight. To the disingenuous, the fake and the phony ones, to the almost rants that also fan the flames that lick the sun. You better cool your beans, shape your dreams, your selfish bonds. The bell will ring for you and there'll be nothing you can do about it but face the sun. Turn my